رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. I am very excited for this example of Quran's linguistic miracle. It is an amazing miracle, especially for those who are interested in storytelling and narrating stories in the style of writing, basically, who are really interested in literature. I'm going to show you one small difference in two different stories from two different chapters in the Quran. But that difference, if you look at it in the context of each of these stories, you will look at the beauty of the Quran's language. So I'll be comparing the story of Prophet Hud in Surah A'raf chapter 7 with the story of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam in chapter number 11, which just happens to be called Surah Hud. So in Surah A'raf chapter number 7 verse 66, Hud alayhi salam, he was sent to his nation, and I'm just going to show you one piece and then I'll show you the context. In chapter 7 verse 66, he talks to his nation, and then his nation replies to him, right? And what his nation says to him, and to him in a bad way, like something bad, his nation says to him, and indeed, look at the words in chapter 7 verse 66, and indeed we think you are of the liars. Now this is it is worth noting the stress here. The nation says to him, indeed we think you are of the liars. وَإِنَّا لَنَظُنُّكَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. Right? Here is a stress. There is more power in the speech, right? However, in Surah Hud chapter 11 verse number 27, when Nuh alayhi salam, his nation, talks to him, and it also seems that not just to him, his followers as well, what do they say? And they say, rather we think you are liars. Here there is a stress in chapter 7 saying, indeed we think you are of the liars. There is more stress and more power. But in Surah Hud, why does the nation not put that extra stress and emphasis, saying, rather we think you are of the liars? It doesn't say, indeed we think. Why is there not that extra stress? Now, let's appreciate the beauty in the context. Now, Surah A'raf, the story of Hud alayhi salam. Story of Hud alayhi salam. You will see, generally, the entire story, there is more extra stress in the conversation between Prophet Hud and the disbelieving people. Now let's look at it. Why? Because that's why you have this extra stress here. Starting from the beginning of the story, when Hud alayhi salam comes to his nation Ad, he says, we sent their brother Hud, and he said, O my people, worship Allah, you have no deity other than him, then will you not fear him? He talks to his nation telling him, will you not fear him? How in Surah Hud, Nuh alayhi salam, what does he say to his nation? He says to him, indeed I am a clear warner that you worship Allah. I fear for you the punishment of a painful day. Look at the stress, extra stress in Surah Araf, telling them, will you not fear? But here in Surah Hud, he says, I fear. The Prophet, instead of pointing towards his nation, says, I fear for you the punishment of a painful day, right? And then secondly, his nation, in Surah Araf, there is extra stress. What does the nation say? Na'udhu billah. They, God forbid, they say to the Prophet, they say, indeed, we see you in foolishness. Na'udhu billah, na'udhu billah. They call the Prophet what? Fool. We see you in foolishness. But in Surah Hud, what the nation doesn't call them the Prophet Hud, the Prophet fool. What does it say? It says, eminent among them. What did they say? We do not see you but a man like ourselves. Instead of calling him fool, he says, you are a man like us. We do not see you followed except by those who are lowest of us. Not calling the Prophet but the followers. And then, we do not see in you over us any merit. Instead of calling the Prophet fool, he says, we just don't see any merit. That's it. So there is less stress. Subhanallah. Look at the beautiful comparison of the usage of language, the way the story is narrated. It perfectly matches that extra stress and the lack of it in these verses. Then Surah A'raf, when there is extra stress, when the nation asks for punishment, it says, bring us what you promise us if you should be truthful, right? When the nation asks for punishment, the reply of the Prophet, there is extra stress. It says, already have defilement and anger fallen upon you from your Lord. And then in the end it says, then wait, indeed I am with you among those who wait. There is this extra emphasis and stress. But in Surah Hud, there isn't that tension. You see, when the nation asks for punishment, saying, O Noah, you have disputed us and been frequent in disputes, so bring us what you threaten us if you should be truthful. The reply isn't that. There isn't much of tension between the reply. He says, Allah will only bring it to you if He wills, and you will not cause Him any fear. And my advice will not benefit you, although I wish to advise you. There isn't that stress, right? So subhanallah, you see, it's so amazing. It was so appropriate in chapter number 7 to put this little stress. You see here, we think you are of the liars, versus Surah Hud, where this little stress is not there. It just simply says, let me go to the verse. It simply says, rather we think you are liars. Because you see the entire context where there is stress, the Prophet starts saying, you should fear Allah. When there is no stress, the Prophet says, I fear Allah. When there is extra stress, the nation says, you are fool. When there is no stress, it says, we think you're a human like us. When there is extra stress, the reply of the Prophet is very sharp when they ask for punishment. And when there isn't that stress on calling them liars, the reply isn't that sharp. SubhanAllah, just think about it for one moment. A book, like imagine for those people who love literature, reading books and stories, look at the power of storytelling in the Quran. A book preserved for the last 14 centuries. Not a word changed. Yet you see the right stress in the right place. Allah narrates that where He needed to narrate the stress, where the entire story had that extra stress and tension between the people. And when there was no, He did not give this. SubhanAllah, how perfect the word of Allah is. And this I'm showing you through translations. Imagine the beauty in the Arabic language. SubhanAllah, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. The perfect language of the Quran. And SubhanAllah, I was just recently, I think yesterday, watching my very own, as a side note, I'll just add before ending this video, my very own videos, one of my past video. I was telling in that video that all these evidences that I'm giving, by the way here, these are not emotional evidences. These are rather rational evidences. And the difference is very clear, in your life when you take any decision. If you base it on emotion, you are likely to fail in the future. The reason is, rational evidences build a strong, concrete, unshakable base, whereas emotional evidences do not have that guarantee. Because when human nature is as such, we can attach our emotions to anything. It could be the wrong thing, could be the right thing, could be a bad thing, could be a good thing. It could be anything. Because emotion, you can spend some time with anything. It could be a good or a bad thing. But if you spend enough time with it, you create an attachment with it. And that attachment brings that emotional bond. But the thing about rationality is, when you think with proper evidences, rational evidences, you build a strong base. You see with your own eyes the truth. The ones I'm showing you here, these are rational evidence. Once you build that strong base, then you can build the emotional love and the connection. Above it won't matter, because you're on the right path. But if you start building it with emotional, attaching yourself with anything, you start listening to people without actually rationally filtering it through, you can make a mistake. And that's why these rational evidence are very important for the Muslim Ummah to build a strong foundation in their faith before actually attaching themselves. And that's why it's very important that I feel the weakness of faith in this Ummah is because they do not have enough rational evidences. Not just this, any other reason. This just simply, it's because I was born in a Muslim family, because my parents are as such, because my society and community. You need to have a rational ground base. So may God give us complete conviction in the Quran as a word of God. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.